okay when we're live. Okay, we are live.
Thank you, Anna. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This begins the pre-meeting for the zoning board hearing today, June 18th, 2020. During the pre-meeting, staff and board members review cases. There is no participation by applicants or members of the public. Following the conclusion of the pre-meeting, a public hearing will be held at 6 p.m. Here, all cases will be heard. Applicants will present, and public comments submitted after staff reports compiled will be read into the record. After the conclusion of the hearing, deliberations will follow. The zoning board will take action on cases that were heard at the public hearing. There is no participation by applicants or the public at that time. And you can watch that on the city's YouTube channel if you'd like to watch the deliberations. I ask that all staff and board members mute their microphone at this time to keep yourselves muted unless you're going to speak. It just cuts down on background noise, which I'm sure everyone at this point that has used Zoom so much realizes. So at this point, we will get started. Like we did last time, I am going to go around and first we'll poll all the board members for site visits. If you visited the site, which includes viewing from the public right-of-way, and then we'll get started on any questions. I'm going to go in alphabetical order of who's here. So case number 1 for site visits. And for the first couple on the agenda, many of you have probably already been there, so that counts toward your site visit if that's the case. So for case number 1, Jim, Mark Street.
Yes.
And Tyrese.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Great, thank you. And Joe.
Yes.
All right, case number 2, Windermere Road, Jim.
Yes.
Tyrese.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
And Joe.
Yes.
Awesome. Otis Street, case number 3, Jim.
Yes.
Tyrese.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
And Joe.
Yes.
Cases, the cases related to 93 Marsh Street, Jim.
Yes.
Tyrese.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
And Joe.
Yes.
Awesome. Case number 10, 303 Congress Ave, Jim.
Yes.
Tyrese.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
And Joe.
Yes.
Case 11, 1200 East Main Street and the parcels associated with it, Jim.
Yes.
Tyrese.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
And Joe.
Yep.
And second to last, case number 12, 4 Cornhill Terrace, Jim.
Yes.
Tyrese.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
And Joe.
Yes.
And the last case, number 13, 3 Diamond Place, Jim.
Yes.
Tyrese.
No.
David.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
And Joe.
Did I answer that?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, you're not answering that. I take back that last statement.
And Matt, I just wanted to remind you, I know you asked David whether he had visited number 1
Oh,
Mark
yes,
Street, but he's
he did.
abstaining from that as
He's
well.
abstaining, and Joe is for Diamond Place. Okay, so case number 1, we'll go through the cases here. So case number 1 for Mark Street. Johanna, do you want David to jump off for pre-meeting?
David, yeah, you cannot participate in any of the discussions about this, as you know. Yeah.
Yes.
Case number 1, I just want to make one caveat. It was originally advertised as held from a previous meeting and later revised to reflect that it has a new variance number. It's not held. It was actually a default denial. So it was a denial not based on the merits of the case. So the agenda was revised to include a new file number, the new V number, and then reposted on the city's website to correct that. So it's file V-068-1920. Are there any questions on this one? You all should have the packet of information that the applicants prepared.
There's a slight change on, let's see, I'm looking at the case, man. This is so small, I don't even know why I bother bringing it up. The applicant's case referring to bus queuing or stacking on Marsh Street. They just refer to Mark as a one-way eastbound street. It's just the opposite. It's one-way westbound.
One-way westbound?
Yes.
Okay.
That's all.
That's good info. Any other questions on that?
No, they really didn't. They really didn't provide anything substantially different. They just tried to overload us with information and support, but no questions from me on this one because I think I was a denial on this one last time. I'm good, Matt.
Okay, any other questions on 1? All right, case number 2. Any question? Before we get started on case number 2, oh, actually, no, let me jump back to case number 1. There was additional feedback for that. Everyone did receive that, and that'll be read into the record too as part of the hearing. Case number 2 also has additional feedback. This was held from the second hearing in May. Before we get to any questions, I just want to clarify some of the feedback that came in includes a lot of good information in there, but I need to clarify that the application is to seek a variance and not need a variance. So if someone feels that the code is being applied incorrectly and that they don't need a variance, that's an issue, a concern that they would take up with the manager of zoning in our office. There's a process for that. And I say this because there was some public feedback that did allude to that. The public feedback included a lot of good information, so I think it was certainly helpful, but just so it's clear that the application is regarding seeking a variance. So the applicant put together a very comprehensive package of information for updates based on that hold letter that they received. Any questions on this case?
Yeah, Matt, I do, because I was reading some of the public feedback and I just want to make sure I understand, because it seemed like somebody pointed out that historic neighborhood designation does not require, or I should say impose, restrictions on the residents. So the way I interpreted it, and I think this is to your initial or opening statement of seeking a variance or whether they need it. Because when I read that, I was like, it's this agreement that the neighborhood has with the state, I guess it's the SHPO, is that it's almost like a volunteer compliance.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and that was what I was referring to. So it appears based on that information that was submitted as part, and you can definitely talk about this to the applicant a little bit, but based on that information, they're referring to the state and national register listing and how that it's not regulated at that level. However, a local law, which is what is being reviewed here, is what is being reviewed. So while there may not be a regulatory arm from a federal or state standpoint, a local law can use that to further regulate things. So what should also be made clear is it looks like the designation occurred before the most recent code. I think the year there was a reference in the feedback from 2000. So the existing code is newer than that. So changes can always be made. And so based on that definition within the existing zoning code that's on the front of the staff report, that's what the code has. That's what we have to go by from a local law standpoint.
So the local law supersedes that agreement.
Well, if it's an agreement, well, yes, I guess the answer to that question would be yes. I don't
Okay.
know what agreement or what paperwork or whatever was filed in terms of that the district itself is not going to be regulated, but these districts occur across the city. There are others in the 19th ward. There are others in other parts of the city, which parts of Maplewood, which they are designated buildings of historic value, which is different than being a city preservation district. You're not regulated by the city's preservation district. But just like, you guys, this board has seen designated buildings of historic value based on that definition, more often for demolition. But it's the same thing. Those designated buildings of historic value meet the same definition, and those buildings are not in preservation districts, just like this.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Case number.
Max, before you move on, Joe, I just wanted to remind you, if you were going to participate and vote on this one and others that
Case
you
3.
were not present for, that you have to identify that you've listened to the tape recording of the prior meetings and have familiarized yourself with the applications.
Which
Yeah,
I
for
did.
each.
I listened to the public hearing and deliberations of both cases. So
Yeah, and if you
I'll
announce that at the hearing, yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you. Case number 3 is in the same vein as the previous one with regard to that, Joe, to say that you've listened to it. So this is Otis Street. The board had requested a number of revisions that are outlined in the hold letter there, and then the applicant provided the revisions. Like the last time, no public feedback on this one either. Any questions on Otis?
No, they did a good job at, I think, touching on what the board requested. I was pleased with it.
Other thoughts or
Well,
questions?
I'm also pleased with it because it no longer looks like a bar.
Yeah.
Right, you had talked about that last time, replacing the commercial windows to
Yeah.
eliminate the commercial look of the
Getting rid
property.
of that.
And
get rid of
in
this-
that little corner,
Yeah.
that corner entrance.
Okay. Next one is 93 Marsh Street. So what's going on here? It is listed in the staff report, so I just want to clarify. The property needed to be subdivided, and the subdivision code is actually managed by the Department of Environmental Services. So this was actually approved through what had been a long process, and then got approved because of the length of time. There was a series of factors. So the subdivision of the land is not actually on the table here. What's on the table here is the actual construction specific to the townhomes. So these are a permitted use in the district. They're single family attached dwellings. The applicant has been through the site plan review process and some extensive review. Included in the staff report are some revisions on the lot coverage. I think it's noted from what it was to what it changed to. It went down a little bit. There are photos, there is public feedback in the back, and then there is some additional public feedback on this one as well that was sent to you. So I'll certainly read that into the record too during the hearing.
Now I know it got approved because, like you said, for the length of time. Did the application change, and was it, I think before, I mean, obviously before it was approved, did the planning commission have any comments that weren't changed and it got approved? And because it seems like there's a lot of,
There's a lot of process involved.
Yeah, there's a lot of process. It seems like the applicant didn't address a lot of the concerns of the neighbors. And I know that the applicant's been through a long process, but that doesn't neglect addressing some of the concerns that the community or the planning commission could have had throughout the process.
Yeah, I can speak to some of that, and then
Okay.
another portion of it, definitely check with the applicant.
Thank
I'm going to speak to the portion for the City Planning Commission. So
Okay.
the City Planning Commission did initially hold this as a result of some public feedback as well as concerns that they had, specific to the width of the drive aisle to get in and out of the parking lot in the back. So the applicant had made a few revisions, and I'll make sure you check with him on articulating this a little bit more too, because his oral testimony will be key for the evidence. But with regard to the drive aisle, there was concern that it wasn't wide enough. So they had experimented with making it a little bit wider, but doing it with a sidewalk look to see if that might mitigate the fact that there's a lot more, non-porous pavement sort of thing. But ultimately the Planning Commission decided it would have been awkward to see a sidewalk and have people drive over that. With that, he also tried to make the site shift it slightly to the south to allow maybe a drive aisle on the north side, as opposed to that being the rear yard. And he can certainly talk, I'll definitely address that with him in terms of alternatives, because that's one of your standards. What other alternatives have been considered? What different variations has the project gone through? So to your point about addressing other neighborhood concerns, the second part of that, you'll have to speak with him about that I don't have info on.
Cool. Thanks, Matt.
Ed, I got a question on that.
Sure.
So the property's being subdivided into single family lots, right?
Correct. For being subdivided for a lot for a single family attached dwelling.
Okay, so two questions. One,
Sure.
okay, so that's what gets it into an R1.
The use is permitted as of right.
Okay, even though looks like it's an R2 in an R1 district. Then why isn't the side setback requirements apply to each and every lot?
Because the parcels are landlocked, they don't meet the definition of all those yard setbacks that you're referring to. So a definition of our yard requirements, front, side, rear, relate directly to the distance between a building wall and the public right-of-way. If that parcel doesn't have that distance, it doesn't exist. So this is certainly a unique project where it's a unique project in the fact that it doesn't neatly fit into those yard definitions. So the way the project has to be processed is it's permitted as of right, or the use is permitted as of right. It's just oriented differently. So this board will be charged with reviewing the standards to see if, based on what variances are required, have the standards been met for that? So the answer to your question about why it's not subject to each parcel for those yard requirements is those yard requirements don't exist because the definition.
Okay, it's interesting.
It is. Definitely talk to the applicant about how he arrived at this.
Yeah, I will, because I had a similar situation under the days of Xena, and I was told it couldn't be done. So this.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm happy to chat further with you about that if
Yeah.
there are
Okay.
questions.
Interesting. I think the letter was very interesting from the public as well. The part at the end was a little creepy, but
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
I would definitely discuss the community input aspect with the applicant.
because someone's listening, Matt. Someone's listening. If you read that letter, someone at the end of that letter, she says someone is listening. So.
I did read it.
Oh yeah.
I've read all of them.
David, don't get me. Let me stop because David's getting started now. So I don't want. I'm sick. Lorraine, you read it too. You know.
Yeah. Oh, it's weird. I thought, whoa.
Let me stop, David, before I get struck down right on camera. Everybody. Let me stop.
Oh, God.
Let's, staying in the 19th Ward, jump over to 303 Congress. So this is I'm going to address a few things right now because I know these questions are going to come up. This is based on what I'm guessing, a fairly long vacant building. And it is, as constructed, a mixed-use building, not uncommon to see in the city. The city was built with mixed-use buildings with commercial on the first floor to serve the surrounding residential neighbors. The property was built without any parking, just the way much of the city was built pre-predominance of the private automobile. There is currently, and it's tasked with being eliminated, a illegal front yard parking area along the, I believe it's Woodbine Avenue frontage there. So because the applicability section of our code states that if you have a pre-existing deficiency, you don't have to reprove something. So that means legally we can't penalize a project for not having something, parking specifically, that it was not built with. So the parking conversation is a wash. Yes, David.
I know in the front you had the same thing. You had the many years ago. I remember that as a kid. It was like a driver, you know.
Oh, okay.
You had to cut curb. Yeah. I don't know. You know, I don't know if they're going to use it or not, but.
Yeah, there's like well, right now there's the on-street portion there. There's like an
Yes,
existing
on-street,
bump out. Yeah, so it's actually not on the private parcel.
Right, on the street part. Right.
Yeah, so these buildings are what the code refers to as non-conforming. So non-conforming means they were built at a time when the code permitted it, and the code has changed. It's now in a single family, a low density residential zoning district. So that being said, the property has rights to be reused in conformance with how it was built, with the caveat of any commercial uses need to be equal or less intense. So if someone wanted to put a commercial use and not residential on the first floor, they would have to come forward with a proposal outlining how that proposed commercial use is going to be equal to or less intense than the previous use. And there's a process for that, of course. And then the residential has rights to just how it was built. So this applicant is seeking to obviously convert the first floor and obviously make some significant exterior changes to it. So sort of in the same vein as Otis, it was conversion of commercial to residential. This is, you know, a similar situation. This one has the renovations associated with it. And then the other component of this is the deck. So there's a deck being proposed to be constructed on the roof, a small portion of the roof. Whereas for residential uses, it's supposed to be in the side and rear yard. So it's a location question for that.
You know, I think one of the neighbors in one of the letters said it used to be back in the day, I guess. This is kind of an old term. It used to be a supermarket.
It was Star.
Was it a supermarket?
Yes, a Star supermarket.
Oh, it was a Star supermarket? Oh, okay.
Showing your age, David. Be careful.
I can't hide it, man.
Well, I know Star too. I remember my girlfriend worked at one of those. I mean, you know.
I'll get you off the hook, David. Before it was a Star Market, it was a White Star Market.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
I know that one.
He had stars on it. I don't know if you noticed that or not.
Yeah,
I looked it up today, and in the mid to late 20s, it was a White Star Market.
White Star up there, yeah.
Yeah.
Just stayed there.
Any other questions on Congress?
No, that's good. That's a very nice project they're proposing.
Okay, case number 11. I should mention Congress did have some additional feedback too, which you guys got, so we'll make sure that gets read into the record. Case number 11 is 1200 East Main with a number of other parcels. So there's some changes to this effective Tuesday evening. The original project did not include a rezoning. It did now include a rezoning, which got a recommendation from Planning Commission and approved by City Council on Tuesday evening. So because the parcels to the north of this site on the western side of Laura Street are no longer going to be in a residential district, they are now in a commercial district with the City Council vote, the rear yard setback is no longer on the table. So the project's changes include no longer being in a residential district, so the rear yard setback is gone. So also initially, the way it was going to be processed, it needed certain fence requirements waived, but because all of that fell under the ancillary lot for the Planning Commission, that's no longer on the table either. So what you're looking at are 4 variances for this one. It's the size. So the district allows up to 6,000 square feet, and this project is approximately 20,000 for both, not just RPD, but also for the Neighborhood Service Center and the supporting community rooms that the Neighborhood Services Center support. You're looking at the transparency between 2 and 8 feet from grade, the spandrel glass, which is on a portion of the 2nd and 3rd floor. And then the last setback, or the last variance, is the front yard setback, where it's supposed to be 0 to 5 feet. They're proposing about a 13.5 foot setback from East Main Street. So those are the 4 variances here. This project's been out in the community for quite a while, so I'm sure folks have heard a lot about it and seen the meeting advertisements and whatnot. Any questions on this one?
Yeah, Matt, but just a quick question. I understand the use. It's just interesting to me that with, going through the comprehensive plan process, that the city just would propose something with so much surface parking. It's just curious to me how, I don't know if the planning department works to, I don't know who did this. I know Labella did it, but I don't know like what departments work with it. I'm just surprised the project ended up with so much surface parking and something that really didn't incorporate some different planning, ideas for the building. I mean, that's just a comment, I guess.
I have a question. Maybe it's more of a comment. I'm just wondering why the issue of, obviously the square feet of the whole project is, very large. And I when I was reading about that, it said that originally, I think someone on the PRC committee had brought up the fact of a redesign, and then they decided, no, they didn't want to redesign. Why wouldn't they redesign that when it ended up being so spacious? That's just a concern of mine. Why would someone say, oh no, we don't need a redesign. It's great the way it is, instead of looking at maybe it's just something I thought about,
Yeah, it's a great question for the, and Therese, I'll get to your point in just a second. Lorene, it's a good question. You'll definitely want to chat with the applicants about that. Inherently, the uses that are being proposed that the city has outlined as a priority take up a lot of space, I think. They can talk a little bit more about that. To the point about space, Therese, with the parking. So keep in mind, a big component of this is first the neighborhood service center, which obviously has a significant number of staff, but there's also community meeting rooms. But it's also my understanding, and I'm going to have Anna comment a little more on this, that there was a parking demand analysis submitted.
Yes, that's correct. Hey, everybody, it's Anna. I'm helping out Matt on the back end of things tonight, but I also happen to be staff to the Planning Commission. So we recently received the request for a recommendation to council. So Tyrese, you definitely picked up on something here, that this proposal does exceed our parking requirement as set forth in the code. So in those instances, we require that the applicant submit to us a parking demand analysis, which was included in their submittal to the City Planning Commission. And that is for unique circumstances, which they have to kind of detail as to why they need more spaces. So I'm sure Matt will say this will be a good question for the applicant, but just a little behind the scenes stuff is they did have to provide an analysis as to why they need so much parking for this unique and particular project.
Okay, no, I understand that. Did they ever explore building a garage here or no?
You have to check with the applicant.
Okay.
I'm not sure. And the applicant will be, there are both folks from the city as well as Labella on the call, so they'll be able to speak to all those questions. Any other questions on this one?
No.
Yeah, Matt or Joe O'Donnell, can one of you tell me what these spandrel glass is? Opaque.
Spandrel glass, it's an opaque piece of glass that tries to appear as a window, but you can't see through it from either side.
Oh, kind of like what the banks do quite a bit.
Yeah, you'll see it a lot in high-rise structures where they hide the horizontal beams at the floor levels, if it's a glass building. So that's how you'll see the striping on a building sometimes. They use a spandrel glass there. They use spandrel glass in examples like this where they want it to appear as if there's transparency, but the function of the space behind it cannot have windows in it. So
Is it black? Is it black?
it comes in different, mostly it's black, they try and blend it. They've got some zinc coatings available and things like, there's all different kinds of coatings, but it's generally appears to be black.
We use it quite a bit on our store, on our food markets sometimes, so.
Oh,
Yeah,
I mean,
This
To
is
the,
exactly.
to the untrained eye, it looks like glass. To the trained
Yeah.
eye, you
Yeah.
can tell it's spandrel. So
Yeah, and Jim, just so you know, where it's shown on the drawings is essentially in the approximate areas where what Joe was describing. It's the transition between floors. So structurally, the building can't handle glass there. So it's hidden.
Okay, thank you.
it's also been referred to as Hollywood architecture.
That's a good one.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Lashana.
Hi.
Hey,
Hello,
Lashana.
Cora's on too.
hello, Commissioner.
Address her properly.
Yeah, the honorable.
Not at
Right.
all.
Get it right.
Let's let me do this. Let's finish up with case 12 and 13, and then I'm going to catch up with Cora and Lashana
Perfect.
on the cases. Case number 12. So you guys can jump in, Cora and Lashana, and then I'll loop you back around with cases 1 through 11. Any questions on case number 12? This does not have any public comment. This is 4 Cornhill Terrace.
Just curious, and this is probably a question for the applicant. Did they come in originally with 8? And did the city, when they came in for application, did you suggest 6 for them, 6 feet?
Yes. Yep, I did.
Oh,
Yeah.
did-
So our conversation, our conversation is always, well, we'd love to give you a permit. This is what the code allows. And they say, well, I don't want that. Well, then that's why you're here. So yeah, talk to them about alternatives. They are aware that they could have done 6, but they explained to me that the it's an apartment building on the other side of them. So there's a significant parking area at the rear of that building, which is right along their property line. And then there's a dumpster in that back corner there as well.
Yeah, I saw it back there. I was out there with my measuring tape. I couldn't get to 8 feet with my hand though, so I had to try to stand on my tippy toes.
So I have a question. Is
Sure.
Jessica and Matthew, are they the landlords? Do they own the property? Is that where this is coming from?
So they own 4 Cornhill Terrace. So what you're looking at, there's 3 attached single-family homes, which are townhomes.
By one of the neighbors. Mhm.
And their parking area is shared by those 3 property owners.
Right.
And then there's that little sliver of land at 271 South Plymouth.
Mhm.
And that is owned by a separate entity. So there's written permission for the shared property owners of the parking lot as well as the 271 South Plymouth parcel to be able to install the fence. So the fence will span those 3 parcels, the one they own and the other 2. And of note, the reason the map is different than their survey map, they did a property line adjustment and it has not been completed yet. Property line adjustments take a bit of time once they come from the county to the city. The property line was actually being shifted to the west. And so the map, it isn't reflective of their survey map. Their survey map is what's most up to date.
Okay.
And then the last case here, which is case 13. Any questions? This is pretty straightforward. Construction of a single family dwelling lot is, I believe, 33 feet wide, if I'm not mistaken. So what's being looked at here is the side yard setback, and they are not proposing any parking. Not that they could install any if they wanted to, because it'd be in the front yard. Any questions on this?
No, very appreciate the applicant followed the design guidelines. It's refreshing.
Okay, great. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'm going to, Cora and Lashana, I need to go through with you site visits and make sure you have no questions on cases. So what we'll do right now is, I'm gonna find a pen first. And then everyone else, we'll get started with the public hearing at 6. So I'm going to run through the cases for site visits. This is a yes or no if you've been to the site, visible, and that includes viewing it from the right of way. And then if you visited the site from a previous hearing, that's also okay as well. So case number 1, Marsh Street, Lashana. Cora?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I can confirm that I have visited all sites from the right of way.
All sites on the agenda. Thank you. Cora?
I've been to all of them except Windermere.
Okay, thank you. That being said, do the two of you have any questions regarding the applications? I'm going to run through them very briefly here. Marsh Street is back on the agenda. It's a default denial from before, so the applicant has the right to seek the same relief, which they're doing. A totally new application. Any questions on case one?
I don't have any questions right now.
Any
No question.
Any questions on case number two? Case number 2 and 3 were both holds from last month. So there's brand new information.
I looked through them.
Okay.
So I don't have any questions on any right now.
Case number 4 through 9. This is the 93 Marsh Street project. Are there any questions on that project?
No.
303 Congress Avenue, the non-conforming structure. Any questions on that one?
No.
No.
The Neighborhood Service Center RPD project.
I have none.
And then you.
Matt, can you just talk about the parking situation on that one more time, or how it was?
Yeah, how it was arrived at.
Yeah.
The parking situation, so it's over what the allowed limit is. So the zoning code has a maximum number of parking spaces that are allowed, and when that maximum number is exceeded, the applicant has to submit what's known as a parking demand analysis, showing exactly why they need that amount of parking, detailing it, and it has to be accepted by the City Planning Commission. It has to be justified, in essence. So that had already occurred. Much of their justification was around the intensity of the use. So there'll be personal police vehicles as well as police vehicles. There will be neighborhood service center and other city staff located there, as well as members of the public will utilize it like they do the existing neighborhood service center over in Village Gate, where there's community rooms, neighborhood groups have their meetings there. So folks that arrive by vehicle, of course, will be parking in that lot. So there's a lot going on there. And the applicants can talk a little bit more about that as well. But it is a good question in terms of the parking.
Thank you.
Yep. And then you both were here for 12 and 13. So at this time, we will end the pre-meeting, and then we will begin the public hearing for the cases at 6 p.m. Okay? We'll see everyone in about 10 minutes.